Okay, let's unpack this. For over a century, when you think of Paul Gauguin, the story has been kind of frozen in time.
Completely. He's the ultimate artistic rebel, right?
Yeah.
The stockbroker who ditched everything.
Everything, his wife, his kids, all of French civilization, just to chase this um, untainted, sensual paradise in Tahiti.
He's the bag boy. That's the
Yeah.
brand. Selfish, arrogant, and, of course, tainted by disease.
But that whole narrative, compelling as it is really based on legend. And, well, on myths Gauguin himself helped create.
Exactly. And our mission today is a complete reexamination. We've got two powerful, newly accessible sources that they force us to tear down that caricature.
Right. We're diving deep into some hard forensic evidence, something discovered right near his final resting place, and maybe even more importantly, this recently rediscovered manuscript.
The Avant et Après. 200 handwritten pages. It's
Yeah.
part memoir, I'd say part final defiant testament.
Written in the last 2 years of his life.
And when you look at these two sources together, the man they reveal isn't running from responsibility. He's running toward a deeply rooted family legacy of political radicalism.
So not an escapist.
A lifelong activist.
And the most immediate challenge to that myth, the most visceral one, it comes right from the ground. It starts with a discovery that just removes the most sensational stain on his reputation.
That's right. A few years ago, researchers found this glass jar. It was tucked away in an old well near Gauguin's hut in Polynesia.
And inside,
4 heavily decayed human teeth.
and through DNA analysis, I think it was the Human Genome Project at Cambridge, they confirmed the teeth were his.
They were, definitively. But the big reveal isn't that they were his teeth.
Yeah.
It's what the teeth didn't contain.
Okay, so this gets to the heart of the bad boy myth, doesn't it? The claim that he was riddled with syphilis and spread it all over the South Seas.
It was a massive social blight at the time. And the treatments, I mean, they were almost as terrible as the disease itself.
We're talking about really toxic stuff. So what were the forensic experts looking for specifically?
They were looking for the chemical residue of 19th century syphilis treatments. So, compounds with high levels of mercury, cadmium, and arsenic.
Things that would leave a permanent trace in the tooth enamel.
A distinct, undeniable trace.
And the result was?
Nothing. Absolutely no trace of any of them. If he'd been treated for syphilis, the markers would be there. They're undeniable.
So the whole story of the degenerate artist, it might be completely unfounded.
It suggests that, yeah, his illness was more likely from other debilitating but maybe less sensational diseases, elephantiasis, just general poor health.
That is huge. I mean, if the science says the core biological myth is wrong, then you have to question the other half of it, right? The selfish, exploiting colonialists.
And that's exactly where the manuscript, Avant et Après, delivers a true paradigm shift.
When people hear Gauguin fled to Tahiti, the assumption is he's embracing the French colonial project.
But the manuscript, which really only resurfaced in full in 2020, just flips that on its head. In his own hand, Gauguin excoriates the colonial system.
He wasn't subtle about it, was he?
Not at all. He calls colonialism barbarous folly and shameful. And what's fascinating is that the manuscript includes the actual text of letters he was writing to officials.
What kind of letters?
Letters detailing the corruption he saw, the systemic injustice of the French government on the islands. He was actively demanding justice and pleading for lower taxes for the indigenous people.
Wait, so he wasn't fleeing society to escape his own responsibilities. He was using his status to fight for the rights of the locals against the tax collectors.
It completely reframes the journey. This man wasn't just there to paint pretty beaches.
Yeah.
And the manuscript also reveals his really radical personal politics.
Such as?
A deep conviction that women should be treated as equals. And this almost contradictory belief system where he loved Jesus Christ but absolutely hated the institutional church.
He was just anti-establishment to his core.
To his core. And that radical spirit, it wasn't learned in Tahiti. It was literally bred into him. His family line is just packed with defiance.
You're right. I mean, he was just a baby in 1849 when his family fled France. His father, Clovis, was an anti-Bonapartist journalist.
A radical reformer.
Yeah.
And his mother, Aline, was considered a person of danger by the Republic spies.
And she got that from her mother, Gauguin's grandmother, Flora Tristan, who is arguably the true firebrand of the whole family tree.
Flora Tristan was extraordinary. A 19th century socialist, a rationalist, a proto-communist, a crusader for factory workers' rights.
And she disguised herself as a man, right?
As a man. Just to get into the Houses of Parliament in London, the commitment is just amazing.
And her legacy was so powerful that when workers in Bordeaux built a monument to her, they engraved it with Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité.
But they added the word solidarité. Solidarity,
Yeah.
which is a much more threatening, politically charged word at the time.
That defiance was the air he breathed, and then that political heritage gets cemented by his early childhood in Peru.
He was just 18 months old when they moved to Lima to live with his great-great-uncle, Don Pio Tristán y Moscoso.
A former Spanish viceroy. So Gauguin grows up in this luxurious but despotic household.
And he's soaking it all in. This mix of hierarchy, ancient tradition, raw power. It gave him this lasting image of Don Pio as an ancient, awesome, magical figure.
Oh, a world away from 19th century France.
Totally. And he was also observing the social dynamics in Lima, especially with women. The sources talk about the freedom and sensuality there.
Specifically through the saye y manto, right?
Yes, this ultra-modest, pre-Columbian costume. A black skirt and a veil that wrapped around the head, leaving just one eye peeking out.
But the key was that it allowed women to be completely incognito.
Exactly. It gave them this incredible freedom to move and interact in public life without social restraint.
So wait, this veil, which looks like the ultimate symbol of restraint, was actually their key to public freedom.
It's the ultimate paradox. And it clearly fascinated the young Gauguin. This whole period had such a deep impact that he internalized it.
He would retreat to that phrase, "I am a savage from Peru," during tough times back in France.
It wasn't just a label, it was a psychological shield, a badge of identity.
And that self-declared savage identity, it wasn't just talk. It shows up visually in his art decades later.
Oh, absolutely. We see Peruvian influence directly in his motifs. He frequently used the Moche fox warrior jug motif, for instance.
A Moche fox warrior. What does that symbolize? How consciously was he using these ancient symbols in his work?
It was highly conscious. The fox warrior represents the Dionysian impulse, lust, primal energy. He puts that motif right into his ceramics and key paintings like The Loss of Virginity.
So his primitive identity wasn't just invented for Tahiti. It was conceptual toolkit he'd been building his whole life from his family and from Peru.
Exactly. Which makes his next chapter so ironic.
Right, from the cradle of Peruvian despots and socialist grandmothers to the Paris bourse.
Stockbroker.
And a highly successful one. He was brilliant at reading financial patterns. Secretive, aloof, but wealthy. And he was an early collector of Impressionist art. He was financially secure before he ever really picked up a brush professionally.
But he weren't chasing money. He was chasing meaning. And here's where it gets really interesting. That search for meaning was planted decades earlier in his Catholic education.
At the Petit Seminaire under Monsignor Félix Dupanloup. And it was surprisingly progressive.
Very. Dupanloup encouraged empirical thinking, questioning everything, to prepare them for the challenges of evolutionism and modern science.
And Dupanloup had this famous philosophical catechism, 3 monumental questions about human existence.
That's right. They were. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Okay, hold that thought. Fast forward 32 years. It's 1897. Gauguin is in Tahiti. He's desperately ill. He's contemplating suicide. And he creates his monumental artistic and philosophical testament.
And he titles that painting.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
It's stunning. The philosophical foundation of his life's work was laid in a Catholic school decades before he ever saw Tahiti. It just confirms that the tropical escape was just the backdrop for a lifelong philosophical quest.
And that quest first led him away from Paris to Pont-Aven in Brittany, still searching for that primitive, uncorrupted feeling.
And he found a place that felt like stepping back 4 centuries. The locals wore 16th century dress, women in these snowy lace coif headdresses, men in wooden clogs.
Like a Bruegel come to life.
Yes, and there he finds followers and starts teaching his gospel. Imagination is just as important as observation.
And his big declaration of independence from Impressionism was the vision of the sermon in 1888.
So radical, he used that vibrant, unified vermilion red ground for the whole canvas. He said the wrestling match in the painting, Jacob and the Angel, was symbolic of himself wrestling with a tough process of artistic creation.
That desire to capture the unseen, the subjective, that's what finally carries him to the South Seas. But the Tahiti he found wasn't the fantasy from the book.
Not even close. The reality was harsh. He quickly discovered what he called the big lie. It was impossible to just live off the land. Every fruit tree belonged to someone. Survival required money.
He called it economic misery.
And his appearance immediately set him apart. His long hair. The Tahitians giggled and called him Mahu.
A man-woman, a male raised or living as a female, so he's immediately an outsider, not some conquering hero.
Right. And yet he uses his art immediately to challenge the colonial view. One of his first major Tahitian paintings, Ia Orana, Maria Hail Mary.
And it depicts a brown-skinned Holy
A
Family.
brown-skinned Virgin Mary, a brown-skinned Christ child, flanked by two Polynesian women.
That must have been explosive in 19th century Paris.
It was meant to be. The sources say it shocked the white-skinned world, which was so used to seeing only a white Holy Family. He was saying divinity lives here too.
And this defiance wasn't just on the canvas. He drew on that family legacy, Flora Tristan, his father, and became a ferocious political activist.
He starts his own newspaper. He writes satirical articles for Les Guêpes the Wasps, delivering, as he put it, sting after sting on the fat flank of the corrupt French administration.
And it wasn't just satire. He was in colonial courts, acting as an advocate for native Polynesians.
Demanding justice, fighting the crushing taxation, he was putting his life and reputation on the line.
And this activism continued right up to his death. He moves to the even more remote Marquesas, Hiva-Oa. He's in crippling pain.
And he buys an Edison mimeograph duplicating machine.
A mimeograph machine in the middle of nowhere. That is some serious commitment to mass communication.
He used it to publish a naughty newspaper, filled it with cartoons mercilessly mocking the local governor, Gallet.
He called him le dindon de la farce.
The dupe, the farcical individual. Even in agony, his last project was rebellion.
And his final philosophical thought, from that avant et après manuscript, it's just the ultimate defiance against any system that predetermines our existence.
He asserts the primacy of individual will above all else. His final words in the manuscript just summarize his entire life. He wrote, "I believe life has no meaning unless one lives it with a will, at least to the limit of one's will."
To surrender oneself to the hands of one's creator is to cancel oneself out and to die.
He was defined by that struggle, asserting his individual savage self against the grain of civilization.
So what does this all mean? The image of Gauguin as just a self-serving hedonist, it collapses. The forensics dismantle the biological myth. The manuscript dismantles the political one.
He wasn't running away. He was running toward his birthright. A lifelong radical, a philosophical synthesist, a political activist. The news sources confirm it. He was this challenging figure who deliberately blurred the lines between his savage self and the civilized world he fought.
It's a powerful legacy, one that even after his death, the establishment tried to claim.
And that's the final strange ending to his story. After he died in 1903, his body just vanished from his house for a time. His friends, Pastor Vernier and a local man named Tioka, they planned a non-religious burial for him in the common cemetery, which is what he would have wanted.
But his old rival on the island, Bishop Martin, he got involved.
The bishop snatched the body. He literally stole it and had it quickly buried in the Catholic cemetery on the hill.
No.
So the debate over who owned Gauguin's body, the free spirit he was, or the institutional church he railed against his whole life, it continued long after he was gone.
It just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What Gauguin, the fierce anti-cleric who believed only in the individual will, would have thought of his final resting place? Eternally tied to the very institution he fought, watching the sunset over the island he loved. It seems even in death, the world couldn't stop wrestling with the savage from Peru.